All right, everybody, welcome back. We're going to be doing something a little different today. We're going way south to explore the heart of Brazil in the 18th and 19th centuries.
And it's not just a quick trip.
No, it's not just like a weekend trip down to Rio.
Yeah.
Think of it as a deep dive through time and place, guided by Erico Verissimo's epic novel.
Yes, O Tempo e o Vento.
O Tempo e o Vento, that's right.
A sprawling family saga.
It really is.
Unfolding against a backdrop of constant change and upheaval.
Yeah, so imagine like sweeping plains, rugged gauchos.
Yes.
And this ever-present wind shaping destiny.
Absolutely.
And through the intertwined fates of two families, the Cambarás and
the Carrés.
Verissimo lets us experience history as it's lived. Not just dates and battles, but the intimate moments that define a life, a generation, an entire era.
Right. It's so true. And one of the things you'll notice right away is how time itself is measured in this world. Forget clocks and calendars for these characters. It's the rhythm of nature that sets the pace.
Yeah, like, what do you mean by that?
Well, you know, the changing seasons and phases of the moon.
Right.
And, of course, that relentless wind.
Yeah. And speaking of the wind, there's this almost mystical connection to it.
A mystical connection.
Especially for Anna Terra, one of the central figures.
Right. One of the main characters.
She says, whenever something important happens to me, it's windy.
And she says that a lot.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's like Verissimo is setting the stage for a life full of drama and upheaval.
Foreshadowing.
Right from the start.
Yeah.
What do you make of that?
Well, it's definitely more than just a weather report.
Right.
I mean, it's you could even connect this to the idea of magical realism. That's so prevalent in Latin American literature, where the natural world intertwines with human experience in extraordinary ways. But for Anna Terra, the wind becomes this ominous foreshadowing of the tumultuous events that will shape her life.
Right.
And in a broader sense, the history of the region.
Okay, so we've got this almost supernatural element with the wind, and then you layer on the very real threat of violence that kind of permeates this entire story.
Permeates it, absolutely.
Anna Terra lives through countless wars and revolutions.
She does. Always waiting.
Always waiting.
Always mourning.
Always mourning. Verissimo even describes how the wind seems to distort time for those left behind, making every moment an eternity.
It's true. And it's such a powerful image. You know the way anticipation and dread can warp our perception of time?
Totally.
And it's not just during wartime. Even when there's a semblance of peace, that threat of violence simmers beneath the surface. Remember the scene where Rodrigo Cambará almost kills Ricardo Amaral over perceived insult?
Yeah.
It highlights how fragile order is in this world and how quickly personal conflicts can escalate.
That's a great point. And it makes you realize these characters are constantly living on edge.
On edge.
Never knowing when the next storm will hit, whether it's a literal storm or a metaphorical one.
Exactly. And speaking of contrasting forces, you'll notice a stark difference between the two families at the heart of the novel.
Yeah.
The Carrés represent the common people, often marginalized and exploited. They're forced into wars. They don't understand their lives, constantly disrupted by events beyond their control.
Yeah, it's like they're caught in the undertow of history just trying to survive.
Right.
Meanwhile, the Cambarás start as nomadic warriors, but gradually rise to become landowners and eventually political leaders. And their origin story is steeped in this sense of destiny. Their ancestor Pedro is described as having mystical visions, almost like a divine blessing on their lineage.
Yeah, and that ambition is embodied in Rodrigo Cambará, who pulls off this incredible feat, capturing an enemy cannon with just a lasso.
Oh, wow.
It's a moment that showcases his audacity and the family's drive for power, even if it means bending the rules a little bit.
Yeah, it's like something out of an action movie.
It is.
But it also hints at the ruthlessness. That sometimes comes with that level of ambition.
Right.
And ultimately, it's Ricardo Cambará who achieves political victory, but not without paying a steep price. Instead of just saying he suffered personal losses, Verissimo shows us how his rise to power isolates him, costing him relationships, and leaving him with this sense of profound loneliness.
Yeah, it's a much more impactful way to convey the cost of ambition, right?
Right.
It's not just about what you gain, but what you might have to sacrifice along the way. And this leads us to one of the most fascinating aspects of O Tempo e o Vento, the moral complexities of the characters.
Yeah.
These aren't simple heroes and villains. They're flawed individuals grappling with difficult choices in a world where the lines between right and wrong are often blurred.
Absolutely. Take the conflict between Rodrigo Cambará and the priest. It's this classic clash between individual desire, in this case Rodrigo's passionate nature, and the expectations of society, and particularly the strictures of the church.
Absolutely. And it really makes you question, the role of religion in shaping values and actions, especially in such a turbulent environment.
Yeah.
And then there's Alonso, the priest himself, who embodies those moral struggles.
Right.
He's torn between his faith and his own human frailties, reminding us that even those who preach morality grapple with their own internal conflicts.
I'm thinking about how that internal struggle plays out in other characters, too.
Yeah.
Rodrigo, for example, is a classic case of flawed heroism.
Flawed heroism.
He's capable of incredible bravery, but also capable of great cruelty.
He is.
He's a product of his environment shaped by violence, and yet he yearns for something more. It makes you wonder, would he have been a different man if he'd lived in a more peaceful time?
That's a fascinating question. Is it nature or nurture that shapes us? Do we have an inherent capacity for both good and evil? Verissimo doesn't give us any easy answers.
Right.
But he certainly makes us think about the forces that influence our choices. And remember, this isn't just a story about individuals.
Right.
It's a reflection of an entire society grappling with its own identity.
Oh, yeah.
You see this tension between the rural gaucho culture, with its rough and tumble independence, and the more refined Europeanized lifestyle of the coastal cities.
And that cultural clash is kind of embodied in Rodrigo, isn't it?
It is.
He's drawn to the allure of city life.
Yeah.
Even as he remains deeply rooted in his gaucho heritage.
Right.
And that internal conflict plays out in his tumultuous relationship with Bibiana.
Absolutely. Bibiana, despite her humble origins, possesses this captivating charm that disrupts social norms and challenges the established order. Rodrigo's infatuation with her isn't just about romance.
Right.
It's a rebellion against the expectations of his class and family.
It's almost like Verissimo's using their relationship to explore the changing social landscape of Brazil at the time.
I think so.
How traditional hierarchies are being challenged by new ideas and aspirations.
New aspirations.
And this clash isn't just personal. It has political implications, too. Remember that simmering tension between Rodrigo and Bento Amaral?
Oh, yes.
The son of a powerful landowner?
Right.
Their rivalry over Bibiana is like a microcosm of the larger power struggles unfolding in Santa Fe.
It's such a brilliant way to connect the personal and the political. Their duel over Bibiana isn't just a romantic entanglement.
Yeah.
It exposes the deep-seated tensions that will eventually erupt into full-blown revolution.
It's like the duel is a catalyst.
Yes.
Igniting the powder keg of resentment and unrest that's been building for years.
Absolutely.
And as the conflict escalates, Verissimo zooms out to show us the broader historical context. The Ragamuffin War.
The Ragamuffin War.
Where the people of Rio Grande do Sul rise up against the imperial government demanding autonomy and representation.
And it's fascinating how he portrays the war.
Yeah, how so?
It's not just about abstract political ideologies, it's about the very real struggles of individuals caught in the crossfire. Right. Remember that scene where a group of gauchos are gathered around a campfire debating whether to join the rebellion?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, their motivations are so diverse.
Right.
Some are driven by patriotism, others by economic hardship.
Yeah.
And still others by personal vendettas.
It really humanizes the conflict, right?
It does.
It reminds us that history is made by ordinary people wrestling with extraordinary circumstances.
Yes.
And even amidst the chaos and violence, there are these glimmers of hope.
Glimmers of hope.
Moments of resilience that kind of shine through.
Absolutely. Think about Anna Terra now, an old woman who has witnessed so much hardship.
Right. Yeah.
She's a symbol of endurance.
Yeah.
A testament to the human spirit's ability to persevere, even in the darkest of times.
I love that even though she's been through so much, she doesn't become hardened or cynical. She still believes in compassion and understanding. But what about you as you were delving into this novel? What resonated with you the most? What stayed with you long after you finished reading?
It's interesting, because for me, it's the cyclical nature of conflict that really stuck with me.
Oh, yeah.
You see these patterns repeating throughout the novel, from personal duels to family feuds to full-blown wars.
Right.
And it makes you wonder, are we destined to keep making the same mistakes?
Yeah.
Are we doomed to repeat the cycles of violence and retribution?
That's a heavy question, for sure. But amidst all that turmoil, there's also this enduring hope for a better future.
Right.
Remember that sense of excitement when Santa Fe becomes a village? It's like a symbol of progress, as a sign that even in the face of adversity, people strive to build something new, something better.
Right. And that spirit of resilience is ultimately what I find so inspiring about O Tempo e O Vento.
Yeah.
Despite all the hardship and loss, the characters never give up on their dreams, their families, their land.
Right.
They keep fighting for what they believe in, even when the odds are stacked against them.
It makes you think about how their struggles resonate with our own lives, doesn't it?
It does.
We all face challenges, setbacks, moments where it feels like the wind is constantly blowing against us. But like Anna Terra facing those relentless, pompous winds, we have the power to stand firm.
Right.
To adapt, to keep moving forward.
Exactly, and that's what Verissimo seems to be saying.
Yeah.
It's not about avoiding the storms of life. It's about finding the strength to weather them, to learn from them, and to emerge even stronger on the other side.
That's such a powerful message.
It is.
And I think it's one that resonates with anyone who's ever faced adversity, whether it's personal struggles or societal upheavals.
Absolutely.
O Tempo e O Vento isn't just a historical novel.
No.
It's a timeless exploration of the human spirit. A reminder that even in the darkest of times, there's always hope.
Oh.
Always that possibility of renewal and growth.
Beautifully said. And for our listener, I think the invitation here is to reflect on those themes. Resilience, ambition, the cyclical nature of conflict, and see how they play out in your own life. What winds are shaping your journey? And how can you harness their power to create a future that's both meaningful and fulfilling?
I love that. It's like we've come full circle from the wind shaping the lives of characters in 19th century Brazil to the winds that shape our own lives today.
Exactly.
And with that, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into O Tempo e O Vento.
Until next time, may the wind be at your back.